joining us
conference will now be recorded.
for this River Management Roundtable on the inadvertent trashing of river experiences. And today we will get into not just all of we're all kind of familiar with the issues related to new use on rivers and increasing use. But today we'll be focusing really on who's responsible for addressing that and some of the challenges associated with limited resources, limited staffing, and possibly some solutions that we can take back to our rivers. And I think, Risa, did you want to mention kind of how we got started with the program?
Yeah, just hi everybody. I'm Risa Shimoda, and just wanted to mention that how we got started with talking about this topic came from a River Management Roundtable earlier this year. So as you listen to this, you have questions, or if you attend others, these are all free of charge, of course, and you have a topic that seems important to you that you want to kind of dive into a little differently or more in depth, please let us know, because this is for the folks who are working on rivers for this community. So that's where this came from when Gary, who you'll hear from in a second, participated in an earlier session, and we just heard it and we asked for some others to join us. So that's why we're here. So appreciate everyone being here.
Just a quick background on River Management Roundtables. If you haven't been to these in the past, we host these twice monthly. We have two different tracks. You are in the On the River track, which takes place on the second Tuesday of the month. And then, and we cover operational topics and in this one. And then on the fourth Tuesday of the month, we cover workplace culture issues, everything from communication to inclusion and effective outreach and things like that. So we'd love for you to join us. These are always free of charge. They're open to members and non-members. So please share the link. And if you're not familiar with the River Management Society, or if you're not a member, we would love for you to join. Our mission is to support professionals who study, protect, and manage rivers. So that's all of you, and we're happy to join us. We want to welcome, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Becca Price, and I'm the communications coordinator with RMS. And then Risa is our executive director, and Angie Furman is our River Training Center coordinator, and James Major is our National Rivers Project coordinator. So that's our team. And then we'll have 4 different people on our panel today: Gary Ananian, John Kazmarski, Lindsay Larson, and Dave Cernicek. So you'll hear from each of them. And we thank all of you for joining us.
Just real quick before we get into today's discussion, we just want to remember that there's some, just to respect one another as we're talking through some of the issues and listen to each other, acknowledge and respect our differences and similarities, and speaking for ourselves, and then also thinking about how we can keep this conversation moving along by contributing to the process. So just some things to keep in mind as we move through today's discussion.
Thanks, Angie. I think, Gary, you are up first to share about the Kern. And so I will pass off the mic to you.
All right. Thank you for having me, you guys. Well, my name is Gary Ananian, and I'm with the Kern River Conservancy. We're out here on the wild and scenic Kern River in Central California, in the Southern Sierras. And we are the only wild and scenic river in SoCal and in Central California. And about 80 miles of the river, it's about a 150-mile stretch of river. 80 miles of it is easily accessible from a highway. You can just park your car and walk 10 feet and you're on the river. And because of that and the proximity we have to places like Los Angeles, Bakersfield, Fresno, Visalia, that gives access to about 20 million people in a 2-hour drive to come to an actual wild and scenic river and enjoy and recreate and do whatever they want to do and have a good time. Unfortunately, because of it's so easy accessible, it's created this huge impact and this strain that's put on the Forest Service on how to manage it. Pre-COVID, it was already a problem. The Forest Service was trying to figure out how to manage the river with the influx of crowds. Before COVID, our visitation numbers were just under 1 million people. And in 2020, the first year of COVID, that number jumped to 3.2 million people. And in 2021, it jumped to 1.2 million. So there was a huge drop off, about almost 2 million people, but that's just because people are allowed to travel now and do whatever they want and go back to their normal lives. So a lot of the people that are not used to camping or doing outdoor stuff went back to what they usually do, whether it's going to Europe or going to ships or amusement parks, stuff like that. But we still saw a lot of these folks coming back. And what happened was you had all these people who've never camped before, never been to the outdoors, and they didn't know what to do. And with COVID coming into place, it caught everybody off guard, and nobody knew what to do, especially the Forest Service. I think they didn't get funding or anything for that summer till I want to say August or September, almost when it was too late. So in those months, everything was really relying on the partners to carry the weight and try to raise money to get dumpsters and stuff put out there to accommodate the visitors. So the issue that we have is we're trying to figure out what we can do is to create like the sustainable recreation management for the Kern River, and how to manage the crowds that are coming into these campgrounds. These campgrounds were built decades ago to accommodate maybe 100 people at a group site, and now that same site that's supposed to be accommodating 100 people is seeing almost 1,000 people per site, and people are cramming into these campsites. There's absolutely no room for them anymore, and because of wild and scenic rules and all that kind of stuff, we're not allowed to expand these campgrounds and make them larger, and we're unable to figure out what we're trying to do. So we've been working with the Forest Service both at the district level, the forest level, and the regional level to put a plan together of what we can do to solve this issue. So we have some things in the works that we're trying to figure out that we're going to test this year in the off season and see how that goes. But I have a little slideshow that I have created just to give people an idea of what we're dealing with. How do I get that slideshow on here?
Let me stop sharing my screen,
Okay.
and then you just push the screen share button, and you should be able to pull those up.
I'm trying to find that screen share button.
It should
Where do
be
I find,
next. Do it.
oh, I said, where do I find that screen share button?
Should be next to the mic and the camera button. It says share, and it's like a little computer screen.
It's not showing me that on mine. Let me see. Yeah, it's not giving me that option on my computer to
Is it
share.
Google Slides or is it PowerPoint?
It should,
It's a PDF slide.
it should be on the screen from the GoToMeeting on the bottom. I see 4 round circles. It says phone, camera, and screen. And then leave.
But it's like grayed out and that's not letting me press the button. I'm not sure why.
Just a second. I think that we need to.
Or do you want me to just email this to you real quick, and would that be easier?
Let me see if we can change this real quick. Make presenter. Okay. See if you can click it now. Thanks, Angie.
Nope, still not getting anything on that.
Yeah, if you want to email it, we could do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that sucks. So let's go ahead. All right, sent.
Cool. Okay. While I'm getting that up, if you want to go ahead and kind of speak to what's on the slides, I'll catch up with you. Or
All right. So the slideshow you guys are going to see is some of the photos that we've taken over the years, starting with all the problems that we're having during COVID, and how the failure of having a proper management plan and organization of the campgrounds will show in these photos. Everything from camping, blocking trash bins and toilets, preventing them from being serviced, to popular creeks that are being dammed up, bridges are being built by campers to access certain locations. We'll show some of the issues that we're dealing with to give you guys an idea of how many people are coming up here and how we're unable to get the most basic stuff done up here when it comes to management. Whenever you're ready, let me know.
I'm still waiting on it to come through, so it might be just a second.
So, Gary, this is a roadside river with like class 3 water and some designated campgrounds.
So the lower river is about 30 miles, and that's all along Highway 178, which is a major highway, which is pretty crazy that there's a huge highway right next to the river, and people can just like park and get out. And we have issues with the highway patrol and the sheriff's department who are not enforcing the traffic rules down there. So we have all these like turnouts that are made for slow vehicles to turn in and wait for faster vehicles to go out. And people are parking in there and camping out in those areas. And because those aren't Forest Service managed areas, we're having issues with both the highway patrol and the sheriff's department taking any measures onto enforcing that. So they're just parking on the side of the road and going down there and camping out. And we've been trying to get enforcement on those, traffic violations and stuff like that, but we haven't had any luck with that. It's like this gray area where they want to blame the Forest Service, and the Forest Service says it's their stuff. And then on the upper river, it's again, there's another highway up there that runs along the wild and scenic section. And again, you just park and walk 10 feet and you're right there. And that is the issue, is just you can just park and get out of the car and access this wild and scenic river.
Gary, I'm not seeing the email. I keep refreshing. Do you think we can roll without the photos?
Yeah, we can do that. I mean,
I'll keep checking back. I'm sorry about that.
no worries. I'm not sure why I didn't go through.
If there's more that you'd like to share, Gary, go for it. Otherwise, we could just move on to having John talk about.
Yeah, you guys can move on. I mean, the slideshow was where the point was, where I was trying to show the photos and pinpoint the issues and the solutions and all that. And it's kind of hard to do that without having these photos to give you guys an idea.
I'm seeing slides.
These are different photos that are from the
Okay.
Kern River, but they're all focused on trash and not don't necessarily show the proximity to the river.
Yeah, I mean these are by the river, but yeah, these are the kind of issues that we hang. The top left photo is a perfect photo of a recreational area. Does not have a trash bin. So what happens is the campers and the day users will leave their trash bags out, and the wildlife will get into it and rip everything apart, and it goes all over the place. Um, the corner photos on the top right and bottom left are illegal dumps. This is a huge issue that we're having on our river. Is the locals will come up and into the campgrounds and they will dump all their household stuff, thinking that we're not going to suspect the locals are doing this because they're doing it in the campground, so they think they're shifting the blame on the visitors. And we all know the visitors aren't bringing U-Haul trucks up here full of furniture and stuff like that. The bottom right, again, it's another campsite gate. The gate's closed because it's not an open area at the moment, but people ended up going down there anyway, and they were camping illegally. So the photo you guys are seeing is what they brought out, and then there was about twice as much as this down below on the river that was left behind. So this kind of gives you an idea of the stuff that we're dealing with these photos. We have a huge issue with illegal dumping here on the watershed. It's a rural area, and the dump that is run by the county just had all these new regulations pushed on them by the state for environmental reasons. And because of that, they're not accepting a lot of the household stuff anymore. And if they are accepting it, the prices have tripled, and it's become too expensive for the locals to afford. They're just dumping it around the river and the lake in their watershed.
Yeah, I think for the sake of time, because we have 3 other presenters, we should probably move on. And
Yeah, that's
um,
fine.
if we find your photos, Gary, we could send them to other folks or show them later.
Okay.
Do we want to go ahead with the Jamboard and invite feedback or hear from?
Yes, yes, let's do that.
Okay.
So we're gonna put a link in the chat right now, and that is a place where you can go. It's gonna go to a Jamboard, and let me get it in there right now. You should be able to bring that up in a browser. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with the Jamboard. I can see that people are starting to join into it. And here we're just gonna have a moment where we can interact and share some feedback. So a way that you can write something here on the Jamboard is I'm going to direct you over to this left-hand side, and just under my pointer here, we've got a little post-it note looking thing. You can click that post-it note or sticky note, and you can type something in here and then hit save, and then when you're done, hit cancel, and then you can pull that over. So on this first slide, we're asking, we're loving our rivers to death and the solutions are challenging because of ... So listen some of the reasons that the solutions are challenging. So if you'd like, you're more than welcome to go ahead and post some things in here. Again, by just going over to this post-it note on the left-hand side. I'm going to move some of these because they might start building up on each other, but feel free to move it around. You can even make different colors to the different sticky notes. All right, so we're seeing some answers come in here. How about people that are maybe calling in and might not be able to see? We've got lack of coordination and commitment from responsible entities, low ratio of staff versus visitors, lack of staffing and enforcement, river users, lack of staffing again. We may have new river designated, but land managers give a little extra money to handle them. Low levels of education, unwillingness for managers to recognize shifting uses and put mitigation strategies in place, such as trash receptacles, public unawareness that God does not pick up river trash after them, no seasonal support due to high cost of living in many areas. So we got some great answers here to why the solutions are challenging, and no self-policing. Some don't value the resource. I don't know if anyone wants to speak to anything that's on this page right now or elaborate on any comments that they might have made. Well, then I'm going to invite everyone to go to the next page here on our Jamboard. If you go up here to the very top, we've got a little arrow where you can click and get to the next frame. And there, so what do we do? And who's responsible? If you want, you can tackle a certain sticky, whether you posted it or not, and you can toggle back and forth up here to the previous frame to look at some of the challenges, and then think about, so what do we do and who's responsible? I see some good ones coming in. We've got keep working together, persist and prevail, youth programs, invest in the employees we have, start working together with entities involved to try and get them to take on a piece of the challenge. Education, outreach, slow change in culture. And then facilitate a better understanding among river managers of the factors that actually contribute to behavior change. So how do you really get someone to pick up that trash bag and put it in their car? Partnerships. Take political officials out to see the problems. Work to train, educate staff and volunteers. These are all really great ideas. I don't know if anyone would like to elaborate on anything here, maybe that they've commented or posted.
I think one thing we were talking about before we got before the call started is the importance of partnerships and how staffing is such a big deal, and partnerships provide a solution when hiring can take a long time. So I think that's something we'll definitely get into a little bit more. Is it great?
Well, thanks everyone for your participation. And with that, since we do have a few more presenters, maybe we should move on to the next one. And Becca, I've got it up, so I can just switch on over.
That sounds great. Can we go back to Dave's slide with the dealing with greater use impacts? It's just before. Yep. Yeah, Dave, I was going to see, could you comment some on what you were saying about the importance of partnerships and then also some of these solutions that have been effective for you guys?
Absolutely. My name's David Surachek. I manage the Snake River Headwaters Wild and Scenic Designation out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming on the Bridger Teton National Forest. Snake River Canyon deals with about 200,000 people in about 2.5 months on pretty much 8 miles of class 3 whitewater. We're highway frontage. We got about 6 ramp areas, and we are Utah's favorite river. What brought a lot of use to us once upon a time was when Water Canyon went to having a a permit system, a lottery permit system. So a lot of that use that used to go to Westwater came up to the Snake. We're about 4 hours north of Salt Lake City, and we're also close to population centers in southeast Idaho. So we get a lot of use, a lot of local use, and huge amount of outfitted use from basically the few million people that come through town on their way to Grand Teton and Yellowstone. And so we have a really, really busy river, and the usual complaints. We have very few resources to deal with it. About all the appropriated dollars, tax dollars is ever paid for is about half my salary in our trucks. Everything else from there for the last 20 some odd years, I mainly raised money for. I've gotten grants, I've gotten donations, I've run a donation program to fund the river. We're now moving to fees. But I also, I have things going on, like I have whitewater outfitters that, transport around 100,000 people a year that kick in donate $1 a person they take down the river, because they can see the big picture of what happens if we're not adequately staffed at the ramp areas, and what it's like to not have bathrooms, and what that impact is on their customers. There's things that you can do in managing this massive amount of use. And, I walked in on something that was really pretty brutal years ago. No bathrooms, no staffing, no nothing. And problems all over the place, fist fights, and a lot of drunkenness. We still have a lot of drunkenness. We don't have as many fist fights. But, coming to terms with having nothing to really shoot at with, and just numbers going up and up. I've kind of broken some things down into what you can do now, what you can do in the shorter term, and what's going to take you a little bit of time to deal with. But this is something that you got to deal with. You can't just throw up your hands and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, my agency can't do anything, and they're not worthwhile," and da da da. The public will kick the crap out of you if you're saying there's nothing you can do. Real easy thing. I can stand next to the river with my hands on the hips all day, and people will make fun of me and talk about their tax dollars and make wisecracks and tell me what they think of me and my money. I can stand there with a trash bag in my hand and do nothing all day, and people will thank me for the work I'm doing and appreciate me. I don't have to even pick up a piece of trash, but we're judged by what we're seen doing and what we're trying to do and the effort we make. Things you can do in the now. You can improve your area efficiency. Gary mentioned it a minute ago. A lot of these facilities were built, half a century ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Boating was a lot different than then. Campgrounds, camping vehicles were a lot different than then. None of our campgrounds these days fit the 95-foot long old people land sharks with 10 pullouts and satellite dishes. Things have changed. Technology changes. The size of boats people run changes. We had park and play come around years ago, and lots of people didn't adjust to it. People just started parking places we didn't want cars, and making trails down to the river in places we didn't want trails. You've got to adjust to that type of stuff, and meet your enemy where they're coming from. Make use efficient and make it possible for people to get where they want to go. I've in the short term, I've redesigned how to get people to the river, on and off the river, in as fast a way possible. Improve that flow of how they're getting on and off. One of the smartest things I ever did was my biggest boat ramp where people take off is to get a generator and a super blower with wheels on it that people can blow up any size raft in under 2 minutes. Otherwise, those people were blowing up that raft with a $10 double action pump for 2 hours and breaking their backs and drinking too much beer and starting fights with each other. Now people can get that boat up. They can get off my ramp and be out of my hair in less than half an hour instead of the hours it used to take them to get off my ramp. Doing things like that, putting lines down, figuring out how to put lines down in a dirt parking lot. I do that so I can get twice as many cars into a dirt parking lot or sometimes 3 times as many. I use those little utility things that they mark utilities with. Their little feather things that come out of the ground. I line my parking lot with those so I can fit 3 times as many vehicles in my parking lots that are made out of dirt that aren't paved. Figuring out stuff like that. I can't make the use go away, but I can better accommodate it. I can also do things like I can trim the sides of the roadways where I know they're going to park so they don't start my ramps on fire with their catalytic converters when they pull over into deep grass. really big thing I can get volunteers on pretty quick. I need to train them, and volunteers aren't no work. It means that you don't have to pay them as much. They still need training and stuff, but I can have people in uniforms that look like they're paid, and that makes people behave a lot better. I can send people driving around in an official looking truck. That makes people behave a lot better. I can always seek partnerships, and I always seek partnerships because I can't do this whole thing without my partners. And I have many diverse partners, from search and rescue to highway departments to river related organizations, and even the Center for the Arts does stuff for me. But always find people that can help you, people that have money, and people that want to see your river program improve. Plan always for having greater numbers than you do right now, because the numbers just keep going up. Better educate yourself, your staff, and your people who come to visit. One of my rangers, Bill Sedevy, is started a few years ago putting out press releases before our bigger weekends that were just about expectations, setting people's expectations. Guess what? It's going to be a big time on the river this weekend. There's going to be a lot of people. It's probably going to take 10 to 15 minutes to even get to the ramp to put on. We're asking to be real patient, but everybody's going to be waiting 5 to 10 minutes to get on the water. And we just need to, if everybody's patient, we'll all get on. But if people are fighting with us, then it's going to be a lot more difficult, and we'll have to deal with this and that. But we set people's expectations long before they even come to the river. So they know how to behave. They know what we expect out of them. They know they're going to wait a little bit. And that goes a heck of a lot better when they've read it in the paper, they've heard it on the radio, and our media is happy to do that stuff for us. They even know when they're happy to work with us when people are having accidents and not wearing jackets or having problems. We run another article about wearing the right equipment, having the right skill levels. The media can really be your friend to help with your stuff. Or if it's going to be totally miserable, we tell them to find another place to go boating, and we come up with a list of better places to go. Sorry if it's your river. In the shorter term, you can redesign your access areas pretty easily without getting in too much NEPA trouble or anything else. If you can make a parking lot have more places in it by moving something around, or if cars have gotten wider, you can do a lot of work within your boundaries, within your borders of your affected ground, and adjust for what's going on these days. Sometimes it's bigger trucks, sometimes it's smaller cars, but I mean, you can make a parking area for smaller cars and get a lot into them and just let smaller cars go in there. You can move to a fee system. That doesn't take too long. In the Forest Service, it's about a year. That actually will get rid of some of your use. I have a huge amount of use because I don't have a fee system. And, that brings me a lot of use. But if you're the only free guy in town, people are going to come to you. If you have fees, you're at least going to have some resources to deal with the increasing use that you have. Seek your partner-based solutions. Find your partners, work with them, ask them for their ideas. There's people that are a lot smarter than you are, being the government guy, and they like to see people will follow the ideas that they come up with and they agree to. If I bring something to my outfitters and make them come up with a solution, they're going to follow it better than if I make the rule for them. Something as easy as like bringing dogs to the ramp by shuttle drivers and guides. They don't want to see their customers get bit by some other company's dogs. They're great about having a no dog policy for all the outfitters, vehicles, and employees. They made the rule. I didn't. They all follow it. Probably wouldn't if I made the rule. Find your partners out there. They're very diverse. They're very different. One thing I do is, I always try and find some money to buy equipment for my local search and rescue and my law enforcement people. My law enforcement people, I get life jackets for that they keep in the trunk of their car just in case they ever have to go in the water. Life jackets aren't too expensive, and it does a lot when my law enforcement thinks that I really care about their lives and I want to keep them alive. I also always have a cold drink of water for them if they come to my main ramps and our kiosk. And so they feel at home. They come there to go to the bathroom, and they always walk in at the perfect time when something bad's going on, and the handcuffs come out and my problem's dealt with. They're there a lot more than if I had to call them all the time and we had a bad relationship or no relationship at all. Better training your staff and your users is so critical. You can have people that stand by the river and do regulatory things, or you can have people that are really trained well. They've had communications training, they've had swiftwater training. We did verbal judo this year. We do it, things like that all the time. So they better can handle asking people to do the right thing without starting a conflict, and getting people to a place where they want to do what you're asking them to do. Once again, working with your users that care about you and having you give that peer-to-peer message of going, what are you doing, idiot? You take your garbage home with you. It's pack it in, pack it out. That's a lot more effective than me standing there with a ticket book trying to force them to take that bag of trash back. Your users can do a lot for you if they care about you and they know what you need. More enforcement, big thing. If you have money, pay for it. Otherwise, participate with your different enforcement agencies, get a contract with them if you have the money, but always involve your enforcement. I take my sheriff's department down the river. They get drunk, they fall off the boat, half of them trying to drown each other, but you know what? They care about my program because I did something nice for them. Longer term is where you can really make those big changes, and you should be trying to make them if they're not working, instead of just bitching that the plan's not working and the plan's too old. Get that plan back out and redo it. See if you need to go to a permitting or a reservation system. What I walked in on years ago was a place where groups of 100 or 150 or 60 were all showing up at the same time to launch a 10 and 1 on my big high use weekend days. We could not deal with that. They took every parking place. They had fist fights. It was just a nightmare. Bathrooms couldn't keep up with it, but we went to a large group permit system. We didn't affect families that just want to run down, get on the river, but we got everybody, all these big groups had to join this reservation system. They can't come with more than 30 people. They can't have more than 2 launches on a busy day. They can have more on a non-busy day. So many moved over to that, but we still deal with groups. We still get everybody on the river, but we're not going to deal with the massive groups that are totally out of control. We quit letting people camp in the canyon outside of our real campgrounds because these big groups that were coming in didn't deal with their trash or their birth control equipment or anything else. Human waste was disgusting, and so we outlawed it. We give people citations if they're camping in our 2 tracks and stuff like that. Sorry about the folks that like to, get in and get out quickly and sleep in the back of their Toyota truck. Usually those people are in and out and I never notice them. But yeah, we can't have camping there. We had to outlaw that. Sometimes you need to talk about having more facilities or making your old dirt facilities into real facilities that are, hard facilities that are designed to deal with more people and vehicles than the good old facilities from the 50s.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, I'm just about done. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry. Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, just so we have time for John and Lindsay and some discussion, maybe just like 1 more minute.
But yeah,
But this is awesome. Thanks.
Adjust or rewrite your plan. Don't take no for an answer and let people say, oh, well, it's just the way that it is. No, if that sucker's 30 years old, 40 years old, 20 years old, it needs to be rewritten. And, set your limits and enforce your limits. It's not worthwhile to put a rule out that you're not going to enforce. Lots of people are all into making rules and putting up new signs and stuff. People don't read signs or follow rules unless somebody's enforcing them. That's my quick trip through here. Sorry if I took too long. Thanks a lot.
No, you're good. Good grief. You wrote the book on the solutions. So thanks so much. John is going to share from the Red River up next. And I think, John, you've got slides that you're ready to share.
Yes. Let me just make sure I get on the right screen here.
John, you want to introduce yourself while you're pulling it up?
Yes. Can you all see the? Oh, hold on 1 second. All right. Well, this is thinking. I'm John Kazmierski. I'm the district ranger on the Cumberland Ranger District of the Daniel Boone National Forest. Can you all see my screen now?
Not quite yet.
The negative? No? Okay. All right. Becca, I did send the presentation to you if we're going to have difficulty getting the screen up there. So maybe that's not going to work.
I've
right.
got it, and I'm going to pull it up real quick.
I tried it again. I don't know if that's working now. All right. Well, I'll just keep going. John Kazmierski, I'm the district ranger for the Cumberland Ranger District in the Daniel Boone National Forest, and I manage an area called the Red River Gorge. There's 19 and a half miles of wild and scenic river, 9 miles are wild, 10 and a half mile section is recreation. And a lot of the problems that I heard Gary and David talking about, we have the same. We have a little bit different user group. We do have some whitewater boaters, but the majority of our boaters are flat water in the recreation section. And then we have a lot more hikers, backpackers, and actually the heaviest use is swimming and day use, picnicking and partying. And so Eastern Kentucky, lots of rural issues, many of which have been hit upon, kind of using public lands the wrong way many times. So Red River Gorge is extremely popular. It's becoming a popular worldwide destination, known mostly for its rock climbing, but also for its beauty and rock formations. So we for the last 20 years have been seeing the resources degraded because of the overuse. And we had a process called limits of acceptable change, lots of different management actions we took over time. And we got to a point about 5 years ago before COVID that we said, this isn't working. We need to make a heavier lift and try to get some more significant management actions on the books. So you can go to the next slide, just kind of laying out some of what we're trying to do here. Again, there's the river, the Red River Gorge. All right, here's some of the problems. So in Kentucky, one unique issue, maybe, I hope it's unique, is that we've got some straight line pipes. People pumping their wastewater right into the river itself. You can go back to those pictures. We've got people dumping household trash in their backyards. We get big floods, and the trash gets flushed right down into the river. I'm sorry, maybe it was forward 2 slides. And then the users themselves come and they leave. Not all of them understand how to recreate on public lands and leave no trace. And we are constantly picking up trash. So we have developed some very strong partnerships. We work with the Kentucky Waterways Alliance. They formed their own chapter, the Red River Gorge Watershed Management Group, and we do trash pickups and cleanups with all kinds of different partners and organizations. We have a very robust volunteer group who works on our trails, but also helps with trash cleanup. 500 plus volunteers on our roster. And before COVID, we were having volunteer weekends where we were having over 100 people show up. So no doubt that's kept us alive. That's kept the Red River Gorge and the Red River looking pretty decent. But now we've got a little bit heavier lift. You go to the next slide, please, Becca. I think this next slide actually shows some additional problems that we're facing in some photos. The erosion issues from overuse. There's many popular swim holes. That top middle photo is a place called Jump Rock. And you can see the trees, all the soil that's been lost over time. Many different places where people like to congregate and access the river. Most of the user experience in the Red River Gorge has been user created, and we haven't built a lot of infrastructure. And so if you want to go to the next slide, some of our management actions are hardening access, creating new picnic areas, new boat launch areas. Here's some more. Parking problems are always an issue. We've got lots of accidents, people running off the road falling into the river, and vehicles falling into the river. So some pretty serious problems. And we've addressed some of these parking issues by working with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and going after a grant program that you all should have access to, the Federal Land Access Program, FLAP grants that come from the Federal Highways Administration. Has been a huge source of help for us in the Red River Gorge, and will probably continue to be a big funding source for us to get some of this work done. I was going to flip past this slide pretty quick, just kind of goes over some of the stuff. So here's some of the activities. We're designating campsites. It's been a kind of choose your own adventure experience in the Red River Gorge. Everybody loves that. You'd hate to take away the freedoms people have, but we are going to be going to 100% designated campsites along the river and throughout the Red River Gorge. All of our trails are going to be designated. We're actually going to make it illegal for folks to hike outside of our restroom areas and boat ramps on user-created trails. That'll be a citable offense. We're going to try to keep people to our system trails. Unfortunately, it's going to become a little bit more like a park experience. Got to stay on the trail, got to stay in the developed rec area, but we're at that point. There's just too many people using the area. All the parking will be designated, and then we're establishing many different shuttle stops throughout the river corridor and the gorge. We're not actually coming up with a government-run shuttle system. We've got a number of outfitters and guides who are filling that gap. They're buying small buses and we're giving them special use permits to operate. And we're already seeing a lot of our users begin using these shuttle services, and now we're going to create some special stops for them. And also the public can use them to drop their folks, so the whole party doesn't have to walk a long distance when they've got to park elsewhere. Designating picnic sites, more restrooms, more boat launches, more designated river spots, access points. lots of stabilization and restoration work. So this goes back to what y'all were saying earlier. For the U.S. Forest Service, if we don't have a plan that's working for us, we need to update it. And there's lots of reasons why. We can't just go do things on the land. We have to go through NEPA. We have to make sure we're not having unintended resource effects, even though sometimes some of these things just seem like so much common sense. It's like, okay, we need a restroom here. Let's just put one here. Well, we've got to go through our planning processes. We have to follow the laws. And, I think we're seeing more resources in our agency that will allow us to move through these planning processes. We achieved our comprehensive river management plan and the management planning in the Red River Gorge by working with Forest Service enterprise teams. I don't know if you all have experienced that, but our Forest Service they're almost our own internal consultants. They're U.S. Forest Service employees. But the enterprise team that we had working on this, they specialized in wild and scenic river management issues. And they were just an absolute huge help to us in our planning effort. On top of that, we've really used our planning process to rally more partnerships, bring local government into the process, and bring other partners and stakeholders. Many folks who weren't involved with us officially in the past have become more involved with us because we involved them in the planning process. And so I think we're still in the beginning implementation stages of the management decisions we made, but I think we're going to see a lot of those partners that came to the table to help us with the planning also participate in the implementation. David kind of covered a lot of the things I was going to focus on, some of the solutions. I know we're running short on time, and maybe the best way to go here is just to take any questions and see what's on y'all's minds and if I can help answer anything.
Hey, John, we've got one more, Lindsay Larson, who's going to present. Why don't we let her go ahead and share from the Housatonic Valley, and then we can take questions after that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, well, I'll just introduce myself while the slides come up. I just have a few, so this should be quick. My name is Lindsay Larson, and I just recently started a new position in affordable housing, but prior to that, I worked 4.5 years for a watershed-based conservation or watershed-based nonprofit, so the Housatonic Valley Association. We were the nonprofit that worked along are the nonprofit that worked along the Housatonic River in Western Connecticut, hopefully soon to be Wild and Scenic River. As part of my work with HVA, I managed our River Information and Outreach program. That was a seasonal program where we focused on visitor engagement at popular river recreation sites every weekend throughout the summer. So this summer was our 5th year running that program. And I'll be sharing a little bit of a different perspective because we didn't own or manage any of these sites. So we worked really closely with the site owners and managers, which generally were utility companies, municipalities, and sometimes land trusts, but the big ones were the utility companies and the municipalities. So we visited these sites and really just tried to focus on encouraging carry in, carry out where necessary, or just that site rules were followed so that these sites remained open to the public, because we've seen somewhat frequently in the past managers making the decision to close sites based on concerns about litter or heavy use. So really our goal is to make sure people continue to have ways to access the Housatonic River. So a lot of the sites that we focus on for this program are really undeveloped. It's basically just a dirt parking area. So no bathrooms, no trash cans, no blinds in the parking lot even. And it's generally expected that it'll be carry in, carry out, leave no trace. There are a few sites that do have dumpsters thanks to the utility company that manages those sites, and we definitely see noticeably less litter that gets left behind at those sites. And then we really do feel like we've seen an improvement through the engagement with site visitors over the 5 years we've done this program. You can go to the next slide. So when we started in 2018, we were seeing a lot of this, just kind of scattered trash left behind at the sites. And at that time, we weren't really focusing on messaging around trash. We were mostly just trying to get a handle on what was happening at the river, on the river, and what the key issues were. So we weren't giving out trash bags or really talking specifically too much about this issue when we talk to people. You can go to the next slide. So since then, we've kind of evolved the program to really focus on trash because that's tends to be the most visible sign of heavy use. And what we've found is that trash that gets left behind is the first thing that people kind of point to when they start talking about how these sites need to be closed or restricted. So keeping these sites clean is key and making sure they stay open. So what we do now is we almost always offer trash bags to people if they seem like they might need one. We really emphasize that we want the sites to stay open for the public, but to do that, they have to stay clean. And then really in conversations with managers, we also try to emphasize that it might not be reasonable to expect 100% carry in, carry out at some of these sites, considering the types and volume of use that they're now getting. So we can't make these decisions about the site. That's really up to the owners and the managers. But I think really recognizing the type of use and then better accommodating that use would be one way to we'd see a lot of improvements in the region. And then we've also had a lot of great success with coordinating volunteers. So nothing even that complicated, just having a list of people that I can send out an email on Monday and say, hey, our on the ground folks saw that these particular sites were really busy this weekend. Can you go check them out and see if there's any trash, and if HVA staff can come down and pick it up, or if you could get it. And a lot of these folks are just neighbors of the sites who really care. So we've also had a lot of great success with that initiative, just to keep sites clean in between the weekends. I think that's all I had. So the key thing is just what we've really learned is just really recognizing the type of use, and then your options are either to restrict that use or try to change that use or better accommodate it. So have structural things in place to make sure that it's easy for people to do the right thing.
Thanks so much, Lindsay, and John and Dave and Gary. It's, there's kind of a common theme of similar issues across all the different rivers and different approaches to solving those. We've got just a few minutes left. I know we've got a lot of input in the jam boards, so like to just open it up to discussion. If you all have questions of presenters, if you have maybe a solution that that hasn't been addressed that you'd like to share, we would invite that, and would just love to hear from you all. Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can chime in the chat.
So, Becca, I know that in the last session, we heard quite a bit from Gary. We had a good conversation, and today we heard, Gary, I can tell you're frustrated, and I think that's it could be expected given some of the situation you're facing there, and I get frustrated too with some of our the time it takes for our agency to react. Sometimes I get frustrated with the public. I get frustrated a lot, but I'll tell you, so I've been on 4 different forests managing wild and scenic rivers in 3 different states. And in the last 22 years with our agency, I've seen a huge shift from our agency just trying to manage things to our policies and our employees being very willing and receptive to working with partners. And things are changing rapidly for the agency where we can now work with partners much more easily. I think you're going to see more attention. It was interesting listening to the Chief of the Forest Service, Chief Randy Moore, a couple weeks ago, talking to us about some of the changes that are occurring in the agency. He started off as a GS1, managing recreation, cleaning restrooms, and he knows recreation really well. And I think you're seeing our agency actually pay a lot more attention to these issues. COVID was certainly a wake-up call, but we employees and a lot of the public and partners have been kind of banging on the door of our Washington office for a long time saying recreation needs some attention. And I think it's finally starting to get that attention. And I know there's a lot of conversations going on about how we can craft agreement structures and to basically make it easier to work with folks and work with partners like y'all. Trying to throw out some optimism.
Thank you, John.
I'll share a couple. I've got your email, Gary. Finally, it's been to space and back. I'll pull up a picture real quick just because it is pretty wild, the volume. And then, but yeah, anybody else, if you have comments, questions, suggestions, please feel free to chime in.
Gary, I'll tell you one thing that works a lot with me is when I have a partner that invites me into the table to solve a problem, it's a very, very different feeling than when someone's like, you're the government, you've got to solve this problem. It's highly recommended as a tactic where, one of the places that keeps me working around here is just, the concerned people who care so much about the river. But, if I'm not dealing with something and it exists out there, I definitely hear about it. And, people do reach out. It's like, we really want to talk about this. We're having a meeting. Could you please join us at such a place? And, I never feel like I have to carry the entire yoke of the problem or whatever on my shoulders. There's always help, but it's very energizing when someone's like, doesn't think I'm the only solution to the problem.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, we do everything we can here on our end, and I think we just have the leadership here just kind of has like this old mentality of, well, we can't do this, we can't do that without the approval of the SO or the RO or whatever like that. And the district ranger over here, he's been working with us recently and trying to get things changed. And I think we've hit a point where we're just like, let's just do it on our own and not worry about anybody else anymore, because all we get from the region is no, no, no. And so we just decided to do everything on our own, and we end up being successful in working outside the box, thinking outside the box, using out-of-box tactics to get stuff done. When there's no money to pay for toilets and trash bins, we raise the money in town through fundraisers to get all that. So those are the kind of things that we've been doing over here to work around, the red tape of the region, their bureaucracy out there getting us funding.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and then, I mean, you can see the photos of all these trash bins. The reason these trash bins look this way is not only are we dealing with a campground that was designed to hold 100 people, but this campground's holding probably 1,000 people. And then because it's not accommodated to hold so many people, what happens is people park their car just about anywhere. And one of these is where they're parking in front of the dumpsters. So people show up Thursday, park their cars, and the trash service company cannot service any of these trash bins because the cars have blocked all the access points. So what happens is none of these trash bins get serviced all weekend, so they end up looking like this. And then on Monday, when we come to service it, they just service the can, and then everything around it stays. It's against their policy for them to pick up the remaining trash bags and put them back in. So the volunteers have to go out there and handle all this on our own, and then we have to get another load out, cost money again. So it's like the continuing cycle of just doing the same thing over and over every weekend, which sucks. But in December we were told that all this money is coming down the pipeline. The Forest Service is getting funded for all this stuff. We hired a river manager. We hired 8 recreation technicians for the summer, and it's August, and we haven't seen any of these people. All their applications are still in processing in New Mexico at the HR department. It's been 10 months that these people were hired, and we have nothing. All we hear from region is their applications are still being processed.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
I have a lot of signs that say your car will get towed, and I've never towed a car, but it doesn't matter if my signs say it keeps people from parking in front of my dumpsters.
Yeah, we've had fires in the campgrounds, and the fire trucks couldn't get into it because it was so crowded. And then nothing.
Well, hopefully, it is good to hear that there are so many volunteers trying to help out, and that there's organizations like the Kern River Conservancy working on it. Hopefully, your work doesn't continue to feel unappreciated or unmatched. But thanks everyone so much for sharing. I know we've packed a lot of content and solutions and kind of discussed different challenges in a small amount of time, but hopefully this is helpful. We will send out the recording, and we'll send out links afterwards, as well as contact info for presenters if you want to follow up with them. We have a survey. We would love to hear your thoughts. We also welcome suggested topics for river management roundtables. They're kind of informal. We would love for you to present if there's something that is, an issue that you're struggling with, or that you have come up with a brilliant solution for, we'd love to hear it, and so would the folks that join us. Our next River Management Roundtable is from the mouths of river management moms. So we looked at some data that shows that working moms face burnout at a higher rate than working dads. And so we've got a couple of river manager moms who are going to share some parenting and balancing tips, which is how to manage that work-life balance that should be relevant for all kinds of working parents. So we hope you'll join us for that. And like I said, we recorded. You can find that recording in our River Training channel, and we will also send it directly to your inbox. We have several other, somebody might have to take over, upcoming training and events on the River Training Center webpage, and we would love to see you all at all of those. So we thank you so much for joining us and hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.